Hello, everyone. Today we're talking about the latest, I would say, sound bank soft synth from UVI. It's called the Kawai Vintage Legacy. Now, I do have a Kawai K5M. I did a video about the Kawai K5M, and it's for those who know, oh my God, it's so, yeah, it's dusty. It might be surprising today when you talk about Kawai because it might not be associated in your mind to like high-end synthesizers, but Kawai at one moment in time was a leader in additive synthesis and many different digital synthesis. And the Kawai K5M is one of them, is an additive synthesis. Now, if you want to know more about the Kawai K5M itself, I did a video about it. It should be here or downstairs here. Click on it, go see the whole thing about how did additive synthesis existed in the 90s, because that's where it comes from, the late 80s, early 90s. Now you can have these sounds, not just from the K5, but the K4, the K3, the K1 or 100, and the XD5 drums. So all of these sounds, like all of the other banks of sounds from UVI, they've been programmed, tweaked, and recorded as samples, and then put into banks. You can modify them, edit them, adapt them to how you want them to play inside Workstation from UVI or Falcon, the main sampler from UVI. Again, the logic is that if I'm sampling a sound from a K5M, well, if they did that, now you do not have access to the additive synthesis. You have access to the recording of the additive synthesis, and then you apply mostly subtractive synthesis to it, which is, in a way, an easy way to have access to complex sound that you don't have usually access, and you don't have to learn a different synthesis. It's basically sample playback, which is subtractive synthesis, but with a sample instead of an oscillator. And they do a great job on making cool sounds and inspiring sounds and usable sounds. There's also one of my favorite is the multi or the multi, depending how you want to pronounce it, where they combine a drum machine sequence with 4 instruments that can come from K1 to K3, K4, K5 for the bass, the lead, the rhythm, and the pads and all that stuff. So it's really interesting. And I always liked what UVI is doing, mostly because what they do is inspiring. You load a plugin and you go into these different rhythms and you play them and you go, oh, I could start something with this. It just trigger an intent, a musical intent from like, okay, I could go somewhere with this. And it could become the first spark to a new song. So playing around with the UVI plugins, all of them, it's just always a cool thing just to trigger ideas. And on top of that, you can modify them so you can actually make them into a song. So it's always cool. So let's actually go in, dive in. I'll play the sound. I'll explain the different way of using the interfaces and play back some of the sounds so you have an idea of how they've been organized. And mostly, I'll spend time in the multi because that's where it's really fun, for me at least. You have your main banks: drum, K1, K3, K4, K5, multi. All of these banks are the main ones. In the case of the instruments, K1 to K5, you've got type of sound. So bass, bells, brass, effects, keys, by type of sound. So if I'm going to go brass section, double click, it's going to load the sample, and then you get these classic, traditional way of organizing them. Now, let's go talk right away about the interface. Basically, between the K1, 3, K4, and K5, you have all the same capacities and features and options, but they're shown in a different graphical interface because they're basically trying to give you a feel of the original device. So the K1, if you look at this, you have an ADSR envelope, ADSR filter with a low pass, high pass, and bend pass. You can turn it on or off. So if you don't have filter, you've got the straight sound of the sample. If you have a filter, then you can actually play with the cutoff, resonance, drive. So everything is there. You can go into effects. Every banks of sound from UVI has these. You get the drive, you get the redux, a bit reduction and sample rate reduction here. You got a chorus, phaser, EQ you can use, a reverb, and delay. So these are part of the sound itself. At the bottom, you have vibrato, tremolo, and a filter LFO. So some of the controls, so you get the tremolo and vibrato if you need to. Again, turn on or off. If you want it to be assigned to the wheel, the modulation wheel. Filter LFO, so how much of the LFO is going to be assigned to the filter. And again, do you want that to be controlled by the wheel? So as you push the wheel up, you're going to have more of the LFO coming in on the filter. So these are like straight, normal subtractive synthesis controls that you would find somewhere else. They're here. If you want to go back to editing your sound, you go edit, and you have this window. So then the last one that you have here is this section here where you can change the pitch, the octave. You got semitone, you got color. Color is kind of playing a little bit with it, but it's not that, it's a lot less obvious. You got polyphonic. Click on it, you got polyphonic portamento, you got mono retriggering, and mono portamento. So 4 different ways to play this. And then you have the stereo mode. Do you want it to be none? So it's going to be like the original recording. Alternate is going to go left, right, left, right, left, right. And classic unison, they play the two of them, but layered. So you've got this kind of phasing chorus type of sound. And you get the spread of the 2 sample and the detune. So that's how this rolls. Now, the other window that you haven't seen yet is this section here at the top, the arpeggiator. So you can turn it on, and if you turn it on, well, it just plays. If you want to hear it and see it, you go edit, and you see the interface here. So that arpeggiator section is the same as you see in all of the other UVI. So you get the arpeggiator mode here. You want it to be a phraser or an arpeggiator. So it's a little bit different and how it's going to work. You can go up, down, up and down, and as played. So in the order that you played, this is going to go when you go into phraser. You got maximum velocity steps. You got a lot more control when you go into phraser. You got a scale quantizer. You can force it into a chromatic or, whatever you want it to be forced to in the different scales. You have how many page you want, so it can be a longer. You can randomize it. So you see this here, you have many steps here. You get the amount of steps. You go, okay, I'm going to put 15 step. So you have your step, you get the gate length. Okay. And here you want them to be linked. And the time. You have semitone, you have how you want it to work. You have chords if you want, bending up or down. So it's really powerful in how you want to use it. So that's why we're into, there's a phraser. You can repeat this one twice. Kind of this, and you can also play with the pen. So it's fairly powerful, and you can save this and just load the arpeggiator. So you can just load different arpeggiator. So very quick, this is how the arpeggiator works. So we were in the brass here. Let's open this. Let's go bass, electric bass. Again. Yeah, more of these traditional. They have these really nice, these, I would say, Rhodes sound here. And look at the interface. You see it's a little bit different, but you still have the same stuff. You got the edit, the amplitude, the filter, vibrato, tremolo filter, LFO, same options here. Effects, same effects. It's just the interface that changes. Again, ARP, same interface, same arpeggiator. So we have here. What do we have in block? And when you go into drums, they're around patterns and style of drums. So if, let's say modern electronics, what do we have here? And then we have it laid out in a different way. So you see these keys at the bottom here. C1 is just one sound. And then these are just separate sounds. So you have all your sounds there. And after that, it's the same loop that you trigger just by, okay? You're triggering that. And then as you go up the keys, the same thing. Now, if you want to change this and edit that sound, you have sequence. You have it here. So if I want to have okay, and here you can randomize this. You have templates. I want to have symbols. It can generate MIDI. So this can actually generate a MIDI track and then drag this into your track here and just load here and load the different drums and play with it. Go back to kit. Sequence, the kit, go edit. So now in the edit, you can actually change some of the values. So you get a decay on the kick. Each of the sound have the same thing. You get a pitch. So sample but down, decay, a drive, filter for a low pass, high pass, effect send, reverb and delay. You have the drive amount here. You have the master drive. You've got EQ for the whole thing. You have effect send for reverb and delay. That's for the master. And if you want to play with, you also have the option of multi outputs. So if you click this, you'll be able to open in your sequencer, your DAW, multiple inputs to record all these different tracks on different tracks. Record them separately and then EQ and do whatever you want with them. You can have also the option of changing the sound. So you've got, if you click on this name itself, you see all the bass drums that they have, where they're coming from, and you can just, actually I'm gonna just like go and load it, you know. So it's really buying a lot of samples and already prepared rhythm and bass and, you know, rhythm and loops for this. Where it becomes interesting, let's go back here. Go, I don't know, Arcadia Heat. They become really alive when you combine them in the multi, and that's where I just love to go. Pop new wave. Okay, let's try this one. So as you play the keys, you see the keys on screen here. See? So the drum is here. If you solo it, if you click on the drums, you have the interface as we just saw. You can even go into sequence and change the sequence. You can still generate and drag the MIDI here. You can lock the kit, lock the sequence, so you change stuff and it doesn't change it. You can load a new sequence, or edit. You can load a new sound here. Okay, so that's really in the drum itself. You go into A. A is, in this case, a K4. So this one also goes into using an ARP. Go edit, you see the ARP. Again, you can go in and load different ARP or phraser if you want. Get out of here. You still have the option of changing the sound. You can go here and just say, well, I'm going to use this sound instead. Okay. You go B, same logic. No, close. B is a K4 in this case. C is a K5, a little bit different interface, same logic, amplitude, filter, tremolo, vibrato, everything's there. You have the send here, because when you're in this, you see there's always a send here. The center reverb, A and B, and delay, A and B. So this one is a toy EP. This one is and this one is also a K5. So not doing anything. I don't know if it takes some time to appear. Okay. Yeah, this appears later on in the loop. And you get the effects. Click on the effects. They're here. We have a reverb A and B. This is the send effects. Delay A and B. So this is where everything happens. The key map. So you can still say from that key to that key, it's going to be the drum is going to be triggered everywhere, let's say. And A and B, or A is going to be bass, and B is going to be a rhythm that's going to play at the background, and C and D is going to be on my right hand, and it's not going to be looped. It's not going to be arpeggiated. So it becomes a kind of full companion playback, if you want. So it's really interesting in a way. I just love the way this logic works out. Mix out, it's here. Mix out, multi out. Okay. Let's try, just for fun, a bunch of them. So we'll hear. Interesting. So that's what I'm saying. There's so much stuff in any of the UVI plugin. It just triggers ideas. It's easy to just load one, start a beat, load a multi, and try to play with it. And then, it's just easy to load one of these multi setup and just play with it. And you just get right away, you get the idea of a song because all of this plays with you. And then you go in and you start to tweak it into your own stuff. And then you add the rest of it. Personally, I love this approach because I find it really inspiring and it triggers just ideas all the time when you just browse this. That's the latest UVI banks of sound. This one is the Kawai Vintage Legacy. Having access to these cool sounds, but also to these really cool rhythms that you can play with. You should check it out. That's it. Stay safe, make new music, and see you soon. Cheers.